Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So I promised you about a week or two ago when I first released some of the ELP data that I would keep tabs on the situation and share what is happening with this English language proficiency enforcement. So today, that's what this video is going to be about. We're going to take a look at what's happening in the news regarding ELP as well as what the data is saying. Ready? Let's go. So first, let's start with what is going on in the news. And in the news, Wyoming is front and center. In the month of June, Wyoming said that it issued 66 English language proficiency violations, and that English language proficiency violations became the fifth most common violation in the state. Now, this is for the month of June. Now, if you're wondering, well, why was it just a violation and not an out-of-service order like it's supposed to be according to the law? Well, they didn't really specify whether it was an out-of-service order or not. That's number one. And number two, the ELP enforcement date was June 25th of 2025. Now, the second piece of news is that Sean Duffy testified before the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee hearing regarding the latest policies and programs. One of them was the ELP, and on that topic, Sean Duffy said that obviously enforcement is going to depend on their state partners, right? The states have to enforce it, but he also said that many states have already started enforcing it without naming, unfortunately, any states. Okay, so now it's time for my favorite part, which is data. I absolutely love data. So the question is, has anyone been actually enforcing this ELP? Have violations been written? And more importantly, have out-of-service orders been issued? So let's break it all down. And this data comes straight from the FMCSA. All right, so I'll be looking at the data with you guys. I'm going to be down in the corner so you can see the whole chart wherever it is in big picture. So first, let's take a look at how many times a violation was written for the lack of English language proficiency. So here's a chart from June 1st until July 14th. And remember, June 25th was the date that the ELP became an out-of-service order, or the lack of English language proficiency. So obviously you can see that the number of ELP violation has been going up, and it's trending up, especially after June 25th. Now, in terms of numbers, from June 1st to June 30th, a total of 3,724 ELP violations were issued. Violations. We will talk about out-of-service orders in just a second. Now, to compare it, so 3,724 from June 1st until June 30th. From July 1st to July 14th, so just 14 days, a total of 2,669 violations were issued. So I averaged it out, and it looks like in July there are about 66 more violations, ELP violations issued per day than in the month of June. All right, let's take a look at the next chart, which shows you how many out-of-service orders were issued due to English language proficiency or the lack thereof. And what you can see is that there is a clear, stark difference between before June 25th and after June 25th. And what we can also see is the trend of those out-of-service orders is on the increase, right? It's going up. So again, let's compare the data. From June 1st until June 30th, a total of 192 out-of-service violations for ELP were issued. And mind you, what's interesting is about 19 or 20 of them were issued before June 25th, which was the enforcement date. So that's interesting. Now, from July 1st until July 14th, a total of 649 out-of-service orders were issued due to the lack of English proficiency. Now, before you come to any conclusions, I have a lot more to show you. First of all, we're going to take a look at this chart right here, which shows you in blue the amount of ELP violations and in pink the amount of ELP out-of-service orders. Now, this is for all carriers, and this is going to make sense in just a moment. Now, if you're looking at at this, you're probably thinking, what the heck? They're barely enforcing it. Well, the issue is this data is a little bit skewed because of those border zone carriers. There is an exemption to the ELP saying that border zone carriers are exempt in the sense of they can receive a violation for the lack of English language proficiency. However, they cannot receive an out of service order. So let's remove those border zone carriers and take a look at how the chart changes. So you are looking at it right now as to how it's just going up and down. What you probably see right away is that the gap between the amount of violations issued versus the amount of out of service orders issued is smaller now that there are no border zone carriers who are exempt from getting an out of service order. Now, to make it more clear, let's take a look at what is the percentage. How many violations for English language proficiency percentage-wise result in an out of service order for all carriers, including those border zone carriers. So this is what the chart is looking like. And in June, the out of service percentage was 5.16%. That was the rate. In July, 24.32%. But again, this includes those border zone carriers who can get a violation, but not an out of service order. So let's remove those border zone carriers and take a look at how that percentage changes. And you can see the chart just moving and grooving right here. And the end result is the following. When you remove the border zone carriers, in June, it's 5.84%. That resulted in an out of service order. And in July, 45.32% so far, up to July 14. So now the big question is the following. What exactly is this data showing us? Is it showing us that there is a lack of enforcement because only about 45.32% of those ELP violations result in an out of service order and the rest are just written down with no further action? Or is this data actually showing us something different, that ELP enforcement and knowing how to enforce it is taking time? The reason I say this is because if you look at the out of service order chart, the one that was in red, you can just go back in the video, you'll see it. It's the second chart I showed. You will see that the out of service is trending up. So is the percentage of out of service. It is on its way up. So it just depends on how you look at it, right? You can look at it as something that should have been done in one moment. Everyone who got an ELP violation should have been put out of service, or you can look at it from the standpoint of it takes training and time, and that is why there is such a big gap that is seemingly getting smaller between how many ELP violations are issued versus how many ELP out of service orders are issued. Now, my next goal is to try and find where regionally is this happening, where are more out of service orders issued, where there are less. And eventually I want to do something that, well, we'll talk about it later, just to get an idea of who is actually enforcing it, which states. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. I'm very curious to hear how you interpret this data. By the way, thank you to those folks who recommended me drinking the warm water with lemon. It really helped my voice. Still not 100%, but it's helping. Anyway, guys, I hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.